as sort of a parasympathetic response to Black Lives Matter and the insanity of the narratives being thrown at us, with slogans like defund the police and all cops are bad. Most conservatives immediately shifted to the sycophantic defense of the police. And while I agree that currently most cops are decent people doing a decent job, I would argue that we as conservatives should have a healthy distrust of the police going forward. Police are nothing but a tool of society to maintain the rules. It's like a gun. When it's pointed at me and my family, and I'm not holding a gun myself, I'm the biggest anti-gun nut in the world. But when I'm holding it, I'm as pro-gun as you can get. And that's what the police are. They're just a tool. And right now, the left controls everything, including how the police are treated, how police brutality is covered. And what we're seeing is people don't want to be cops anymore because the risk isn't worth it. You can do the exact thing the state said you were approved to do, train you to do, and then still go to jail over it. This is how the left has taken over every other institution. They make it to where you don't want to put up with the crap, so you, the good person, leave. And over time, they build a monolithic system of their own people. They did this with the teachers' unions. They do this with HR departments. They've done this with journalism. And they're doing it with police forces right now. And the military, too. I want to read you a letter from an anonymous cop. And this letter was circulating last year when all the Black Lives Matter stuff was going on. The future of law enforcement. I served in the United States Army. Was trained at the JFK Special Warfare Center and school in Fort Bragg, deployed to Afghanistan, and exchanged small arm fire with the Mujahideen. When I was not on patrol, we regularly took the kind of accurate rocket and mortar fire which would later go on to kill my buddy Sean Walsh. I eventually found my calling as a police officer, and I was the perfect candidate. I have had an excellent career, developed an outstanding reputation. My rookie photos are on my department's hiring page twice. I have been decorated, trained recruits at the academy, and was a field training officer on the streets. My thoughts and feelings regarding humanity went viral when I wrote Shopping Cart Theory. This career of national and public service culminated in me being offered the prestigious position of traffic officer. I would have gone on to receive my own take-home police BMW motorcycle, some of the best motorcycle driving training in the entire world, and a well-paying position which would have easily put my income into the six figures, comparable or better than the salaries of most police chiefs and sheriffs in the United States, the very pinnacle of the law enforcement profession. I turned down the offer. I quit. In the wake of the 100 or so calls and texts from coworkers congratulating and bemoaning the loss of a good cop, I assessed my decision as my final shift approaches. The writing on the wall becomes clear every day. The job has been murdered, stabbed to death on a call, bleeding out, waiting for backup that is not coming. Hiring freezes, which swept us in the wake of the 2008 financial crisis, mean many officers across the country are already eligible for retirement or will be within the next few years. My department has been playing catch-up trying to rebuild the ranks as long as I have been there. The hiring process for law enforcement can take 3 months to a year, then average academy length is half a year, and after that, usually a half year of field training with more experienced officers showing the ropes. This produces a rookie officer who is sometimes solo capable but will not be truly prepared to take on all the job has to throw at them until they have been on their own for a year. Total time from date of application to hopefully having a competent officer is about 3 years. An officer who decides they want out can be gone in as little as half a day. The increase in academy class sizes necessary to stem this hemorrhaging manpower would be massive and beyond the capabilities of almost every department in the country. The training and work demands foisted onto officers are incredible. Physical fitness, already rare in our obese nation. Legal expertise at every level of the criminal and civil system. Expert marksmanship on demand in any condition. Hand-to-hand fighting skills capable of subduing an opponent without looking too rough on camera, the ability to drive a vehicle constantly, sometimes at high speeds through an urban area, experience in investigating and making a legal case which will convince a jury beyond a reasonable doubt the suspect is guilty in a system which becomes more Byzantine. It has fallen on law enforcement to be medical experts in what is by and large the non-criminal act of being mentally ill. Officers are expected to be masters of dialogue, adult and juvenile psychology, as well as their area, capable of making decisions so fair to be the envy of King Solomon. When qualified immunity is eroded, they will be expected to carry their own liability insurance like doctors do, except officers are not going to be paid as doctors. They're going to continue to be paid comparable to a certified forklift driver. They need to have the mental fortitude to endure continuous exposure to traumatic events. They will see substance abuse, sexual enslavement, human misery, grotesque mutilation, violent rape, lonely suicide, brutal murder. My dead baby call stands alone as the single worst experience of my entire life. They will be physically attacked and maybe even murdered. They will endure constant judgment, internally and externally. Their life before, after, outside, and within the profession scrutinized. Constantly inundated with criticism, the noise is deafening. Every traffic stop, every call for service, every second an officer is wearing the uniform, they are taking all their chips, their home, their car, their family, everything they have, and they're putting it on the poker table. They're going all in. Every single hand. Playing what they're dealt over and over and over, from day one on the street until they cash out. If by some miracle they make it to retirement, what is their typical reward? Death by heart disease at 57? For what? A department which does not care about the officer in the slightest and will gladly sacrifice them for the bigger picture? The public? Their opinion of officers changes with the wind, if it was ever positive to begin with. How can anyone with concrete concerns for the welfare of themselves and their family rationally decide to risk these precious things for the nebulous idea of the good of a largely uncaring mass of strangers? My advice to my fellow officers is simple. The best thing you can do to take care of yourself and your family is to walk away from the table before the dealer decides to clean you out. If you have the skill set to be successful in this profession, you will be successful outside of it. You will have as much or greater security for your family than whatever you are gambling with in an environment of self-destructive risk. Get out of the job before you die trying to arrest some criminal the county prosecutor was never going to file charges on anyways, and the public does not want you harassing to begin with. How long are you going to stand inside a police station that is burning down around you? How long are you going to put your life and family second for the people just watching it burn? Some of them are even holding the matches. F them. This is what cowardice looks like. You just quit and let them have their way. Before we move on though, we need to talk about the sponsor of today's video, myself. And I'm told we have a video for that. Okay, let's cut to that right now. You. Yeah, you. Look fat.
Look fat, look, here's the deal.
According to YouTube, 63.7% of you aren't subscribed.
Come on, man.
That's dog-faced pony soldier behavior, if I've ever seen it.
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier.
You know who probably isn't subscribed? Corn Pop.
And Corn Pop was a bad dude.
That's right, Joe. I put a lot of effort into these videos and it makes me mad when people don't subscribe. So mad I could almost challenge them to a push-up contest right now.
Let's do push-ups together, man.
And I'm committed to YouTube. I'll even do true international pressure.
True international pressure.
I know in the past I've said I wouldn't, that it would violate my principles, that it would go against what I believe in. But when you're wrong, and it takes a big man to admit when he's wrong about
true international pressure.
So please consider subscribing and help grow this channel. Anyways, back to well, you know the thing.
You know the thing.
We've already seen a disturbing trend emerge in Australia of police arresting people who violated the laws over COVID. We saw that instantly here during the first lockdowns. I saw a video of a guy being arrested who was out in the ocean, all by himself, for violating the rules. That's already here, people. I heard someone say that the point of COVID is to affect your everyday life the way 9/11 affected air travel. And when the serious resistance starts, the first point of contact we will have is with the police. Assuming that they will be on our side is a gross ignorance of history. My very first video was on this subject, that conservatives have massively overestimated the amount of people who sympathize with our position. Let's take abortion. A recent study shows that 59% of people want abortion legal in all or most cases, and only 39% think it should be illegal. And history bears this out. conservatives never stop pointing out the horrors of abortion and constantly point to that figure of 50 million abortions since Roe v. Wade. And yes, that figure is correct, but that means that over 50 million times, which would be about 1 million times a year, or around 3,000 times, every single day, some woman somewhere makes the decision to kill her own baby. Abortion is terrible, but where are these women coming from? These abortions aren't forced on us from a foreign government. These aren't women from a different country coming here to have them done. These are our own people. It's our neighbors, people we know, people we go to church with, people we work with. A lot of people are getting abortions. If 3,000 times every single day for 50 years, with regards to the most controversial issue possibly ever, a woman can make the painful decision to murder her own kid, and there's a slaughterhouse dedicated to it, and nurses and doctors who facilitate it, and the state approves of it, how do we think it will go when a cop has to make an arrest on someone who the state has told him is an enemy? How many cops will violate their conscience and do it because it's just easier than pushing back against the system? How many cops stepped down out of disgust before they gassed women and children to death in Waco, before burning their bodies to a crisp? Or Ruby Ridge? Or when they dropped C4 on a residence in Philly and tried to bomb women and children in 1985? You see, it doesn't matter how many good cops step down or refuse to do it. It won't matter if you're a patriot. It won't matter if you have a back the blue flag, because all it takes is for bad cops to do what's in their job description. We have to manage how bad the damage will be when we are inevitably labeled enemies of the state. And the first order of business is to get our noses out of the butts of the very people who will ask to see our papers, or to come with them, or to get on that train. How can we ever actually be a resistance to the system if we are too blind to even realize who our real enemies are? And again, that's not to say that cops are bad people. Like we saw in 2020, Trump had almost all of the police unions on his side. But when there is a miscarriage of justice, or when a mayor or police chief embraces the leftist agenda, and you see a whole squad or whole police force retire in protest, well, that's just what the left wants, and they will simply be replaced with good little boys who won't fight back when you give them orders, and our police forces already have a lot of those types of people in them. For too long, conservatives have narrowed their Overton window on what action is allowed and what action isn't. We've prided ourselves in being the law-abiding citizens so much that we forget when it is appropriate to be unruly, that we come from unruly people. We forget that our founding fathers would have rioted and violently taken back their old country long before we have even thought of the possibility of doing it. We have spent decades looking at riots and protests and always condemning them, denouncing them, acting as if the people should be more behaved. We say things like, well, if you don't want to get shot by the police, then just cooperate. And we've never empathized with their frustrations until now. What if someone said to you, well, if you don't want to lose your job, just get the vaccine. Just cooperate. It's not that hard. Just do what they're telling you. It's safe. It's free. It's effective. Just do it. You don't want to get fired. Just do it. Imagine the rage that's building inside you when you hear that. But it didn't start out that way. It started as a 15 days to stop the spread initiative. And that should have been the hill that we died on. It should have just ended right there. 15 days, we did it. No more, we're done. But we all collectively went along with it. And here we are, almost 600 days later, and vaccine mandates are the biggest attack on our personal liberties that we have ever experienced in our lifetimes. And where's the anger? Where is the rioting? Where is the pushback? It's very clear that we don't have leaders that represent us. We have dictators who do central planning and push us around like pawns. If there's ever a time to be unruly and angry and push back, now is the time. To quote Thomas Jefferson, whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute a new government, laying its foundations on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. And I also want to quote MLK, violence is the language of the unheard. I guess it'll just have to get worse than this before we start making ourselves heard. But just keep in mind that when we all reach our collective desperation, our first point of contact of resistance for going into a grocery store or buying gas or living our lives will be the police. They will be the ones on the side of our totalitarian government who will try and control what we do. Don't ever forget that. Anyways, that's all the time I have for this video. If you like this video and type of content, and even if you don't, consider giving this video a like or maybe subscribing. I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.